Today on Bench Briefs, we're looking at a high-profile case from the Supreme Court of Canada, R.V. Maadani, a 2006 decision that tackles the serious issue of public trust and criminal responsibility for public officials. This case dives into the heart of what happens when someone entrusted with public funds allegedly crosses the line into fraud and breach of trust. So, what happened here? Mr. Maadani was a public official charged with multiple counts of fraud and breach of trust. The allegations were serious. He was accused of misusing public funds and manipulating contracts to benefit private interests, essentially putting personal gain ahead of the public good. The trial court found him guilty, but the defense pushed back, arguing there were procedural errors during the trial and that the court misinterpreted the laws governing fraud and breach of trust in this context. This appeal made its way through the courts and eventually landed at the Supreme Court of Canada, which had to answer some tough questions. First, did the trial court get it right when it interpreted and applied the criminal statutes related to fraud and breach of trust by a public official? These laws are designed to hold public officials to a high standard because they manage public resources and have a fiduciary duty to act in the public's best interest. Second, the Supreme Court had to consider whether the trial respected procedural safeguards. That means looking at whether the evidence was properly admitted and whether Mr. Maadani's rights to a fair trial was protected throughout the process. These procedural protections are foundational to our justice system and ensure that convictions aren't just about the facts, but also about fairness and due process. Another key issue was the scope of the fiduciary duties owed by a public official. What exactly does it mean for someone in public office to have a fiduciary duty? And how high is the bar for proving criminal intent in cases like this? The court had to clarify when actions cross the line from poor judgment or administrative mistakes into criminal behavior that warrants serious consequences. Why does this case matter? Beyond the individual circumstances of Mr. Maadani's conduct, R.V. Maadani sets important legal precedents for how Canadian courts handle allegations of public corruption and abuse of power. It reinforces the principle that public officials are held to rigorous standards, and it sharpens the legal definitions around fraud, breach of trust, and criminal intent in the public sector. This decision also underscores the importance of procedural fairness in criminal trials. Even when the allegations are severe, the courts must ensure that the accused's rights are fully respected. This balance protects not only individuals, but also the integrity of the justice system as a whole. In the bigger picture, as public trust in institutions continues to be a critical issue, cases like this remind us that the law plays a vital role in maintaining accountability. Public officials must be held accountable when they breach their duties, but the process must be fair and just, reflecting the values of democracy and the rule of law. Thanks for listening to this episode of Bench Briefs. Be sure to join us next time when we dive into another important legal decision shaping Canadian law. Until then, take care.